My question is in regard to Defense Staff General Jonathan Vance. He's been charged with obstruction of justice, which is fairly serious. In light of that, do you still stand by how your government handled concerns about Vance in 2018 and the allegations were brought onward?
So when it comes to the charges against General Vance, these are before the courts, and it would be inappropriate for me to comment. What I will say is our government absolutely recognizes that there is a toxic culture in the Canadian Armed Forces when it comes to sexual harassment and sexual misconduct. It is a particularly toxic culture for the brave women who serve Canada in uniform, and that culture has to change. Our government is working hard to ensure that that culture does change. There's more than $150 million in the budget to support that change, and I'll just conclude by saying I have tremendous respect and admiration for the brave Canadian women in uniform who have been stepping up and speaking out about this.
The Prime Minister yesterday said fully vaccinated Americans can come into Canada mid-August. How confident are you that by mid-August, what if vaccination rates slow down and don't hit the 75% we're on pace to hit by mid-August?
So the federal government takes very seriously our responsibilities when it comes to the border. There has already been a gradual easing of border measures when it comes to fully vaccinated Canadians. We are looking closely at what the next step would be, particularly when it comes to fully vaccinated American neighbors. And that is a conversation which is happening in close collaboration with the leaders of the provinces and territories. The Prime Minister had a conversation with them this week at the regular First Ministers meeting. It's a conversation that is happening in collaboration with our American partners. And most importantly, it's a conversation that is happening fully advised by Canadian public health authorities, both at the federal and the provincial and territorial levels. I think that we all are very keen for the country to open up domestically and in terms of our borders, but I think all of us also know that the current positive situation when it comes to the coronavirus in Canada, with low transmission rates, high levels of vaccination, we've all sacrificed a lot to get here. The high vaccination levels in Canada are a really good thing, and I'd like to congratulate everyone who is vaccinated. There are still too many Canadians who aren't vaccinated, and if you're listening, please go out and get vaccinated. I've started to do a few more in-person events, and I ask everyone I talk to, have you had your vaccine yet? And some people haven't. So please, go out and get vaccinated. All the vaccines that are available in Canada are safe. You'll make yourself safe, you'll make your neighbors safe. And the most important thing when it comes to border decisions will be to be sure that what we do is in line with advice from public health authorities. We're very aware of the new danger posed by the Delta and other variants of concern.
Could you answer that in French?
Évidemment. Alors, nous avons déjà dans une façon prudente.
Well, we have already, but in a very cautious way. We've changed to a small degree the rules at the border of Canada. Now, Canadians who've received 2 doses of the vaccine now have the right to go across the border without mandatory quarantine. Now, the next step, as the Prime Minister pointed out, would to give the same rights to Americans, to our neighbours, who've also received 2 doses of the vaccine. And we're discussing this issue. We're discussing with the premiers of the province and territories and with our American neighbours. And the most important thing is also that we're discussing it with the health authorities in Canada. And any changes the federal government will make at the border, all these changes will be made only on the basis of the advice from public health authorities in Canada. Health is the most important thing. And we've done a lot. We've achieved a lot in Canada. We've almost beaten COVID here in Canada. And this is not the right time now to sacrifice the enormous gains that we've made.
Sports a little bit. Has there been a decision about the Blue Jays returning to Canada yet?
As with the border, when it comes to sporting events, we are working in close collaboration with the provincial and municipal authorities. I think you saw today that our federal government is able to work effectively with Mayor Tory in the City of Toronto and with Premier Ford in the province of Ontario. That's a discussion that we're having together. And again, let me just emphasize, I think all Canadians really want to get back to normal life. But I'm proud of us as a country. We are a smart and prudent country. You can see that with the low levels of COVID and the high levels of vaccination. And decisions taken about sporting events will be taken first and foremost with public health in mind.
And forgive me if I missed this question. For the border process, it expires on July 21st. Has there been any deal or any outcome? Or?
I just answered that question.
Okay,
so.
Premier Ford has set a hard no to both vaccine passports and also getting essential healthcare workers and making them mandatory to get vaccinated. Your thoughts on this issue?
I'll say a couple of things. First of all, when it comes to proof of vaccination, there's the question of the approach we take inside our country and the approach we take at our borders. Already, we are requiring proof of vaccination to not be subject to quarantine measures. I myself traveled recently to the G20 in Italy, and my province of Ontario proof that I had received 2 doses of vaccine 2 weeks before returning to Canada was something I needed to show at the border. And I do think going forward that we will continue to need both from Canadians and in the fullness of time from non-Canadians evidence that people have received 2 doses of vaccine to have a different kind of treatment entering the country. So the approach at the borders already does require proof of vaccination. I think that's entirely appropriate. And the form of that proof will evolve. That's where the federal responsibility is. In terms of Canadians, I really just want to say, please go and get vaccinated. I personally have actually been really surprised. I've only this week started doing in-person events, and I have asked pretty much everyone I've spoken to, have you had your vaccine? Have you had your second vaccine? And there are still more people than there should be who haven't either been vaccinated once or been vaccinated twice. One question I came across just yesterday was, I spoke to someone, a very nice young woman, who said she hadn't been vaccinated yet because she was waiting for Pfizer and didn't want to get vaccinated with Moderna. So for people who have that concern, let me just say, I received a first dose of AstraZeneca, a second dose of Moderna. Moderna is an extremely effective, an extremely safe vaccine. And if there are other people listening who are like that young woman and are hesitating because Moderna is the vaccine offered, please go out and get vaccinated. You'll feel great afterwards, you will be safer, and your friends and family and neighbors will too.
Follow up this question. How do you share the information, like who took the vaccine and who don't, for the other country and between the provinces?
So, as I said, I think we need to differentiate between what we're doing inside our country and rules at the border. Right now at the border, proof of vaccination is required for Canadians and permanent residents to not be subject to quarantine. I think that is entirely appropriate. We know that people who have received 2 doses of vaccine and are 2 weeks, have had the second vaccine 2 weeks or more ago, are in a much safer position when it comes to the coronavirus. So that measure is already in place at the border, and it is very likely that as we extend the border loosening to include not only Canadians and permanent residents of Canada, but people from other countries, a critical question will be, have you had 2 doses of vaccine at least 2 weeks ago? When it comes to Canadians, we're pretty good at knowing whether a person has had a vaccine or not. I showed my province of Ontario healthcare piece of paper. I think everyone who's been vaccinated has one. It said I've received 2 doses. It said AstraZeneca and Moderna, and it said the date of my final dose. So I think we have a lot of trust and confidence in the Canadian healthcare system and the proof that we get. And when it comes to other countries, we'll be careful and thoughtful. And I do want to emphasize, we all want to reopen the country, but we have sacrificed a lot to get to where we are. Our approach is going to be gradual. It will be prudent. It will be based on science. And we are very aware of the additional dangers that the Delta variant and other new variants of concern are posing. Okay, thank you very much.
Question, just thank you very much for the government and Premier and Guyana for this huge contribution. This 30 years of dream, more than 30 years of dream. Thank you very much.
It's a great day. I'm so happy that I was able to be here. I'm really proud of Canada today. Okay, take care.
Thank you, everyone.